It's me, Teddy, back with episode 2 of Teddy's Soundbites. Today we're going to be discussing white noise and working with it pretty much exclusively as our sound source. Obviously we're going to be affecting it, manipulating it, shaping it, but the source of everything today is going to be a simple white noise. Well, why white noise, you might be wondering. White noise is a sound that's all around us. It's part of nature. That's the sound of wind and rain. In urban environments, we hear cars made up of white noise. White noise is pretty much always omnipresent at some format and some level to our ears. It probably is the first sound anyone ever heard, even before they were born, while they're in the womb. The white noise filtering through the amniotic fluid and so on. Probably the first soothing thing. And I know a lot of people who really rely on white noise for sleep, relaxation, that kind of thing. So what we're going to be doing today is showing a couple of ways just to generate basic white noise in Ableton Standard. And then I'm going to get a bit more advanced and in-depth using some plugins, particularly the free Synth Vital. And I'll explain why a bit when we get to that, why we're using that. But first, I'm going to show you a couple of the stock generators in Ableton and just make a couple of basic sounds. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here, since we're doing sound design, we're going to be making a lot of noise, and it can be pretty loud. Sometimes it might get a little out of control on us. So one of the smart things to do when you're doing sound design, go ahead and throw a limiter on your master channel here. Set it at -1. Okay, so this is just going to protect our ears and our speakers in case you do anything that's too loud, and it will not clip this way, okay? That's just a smart thing to do when making crazy sounds. So, there's tons of ways to generate noise. A very obvious way would be to just get a sample of some noise. Got various kinds of noise in here. There's some brown noise. Those are some various pink noises. This is a nice one, white noise, spatial stereo. Let's turn it down here. So by enabling warp here, we can turn it into a loop. And therefore we have kind of infinite static. Now, so what, right? Like this is kind of loud, kind of annoying, doesn't do much for us yet. Because we haven't really done anything to it. So there's a few things we could do. An EQ is going to be pretty helpful here. So one of the advantages of noise is that it takes up the whole frequency spectrum. So you can see here, you can't tell what pitch it is because it is all frequencies, right? And it's super, super loud, it covers everything. The thing is, that's very advantageous if we're trying to use it in a mix that's busy. We may be able to target just the area that's available for frequencies, right? So putting a low and a high pass or high cut on here, we could also go up the curve here to the 4-pole filters. These are much more surgical. See, so now we've kind of shortened the amount of frequency or space this is going to take up. And you can see we can also just make some sounds just by messing with the EQ. So let's go and do another little technique here. because we're going to make some sounds and we want to save them. So we're going to use this audio to record the other audio. Okay, now this is just a generally useful sound design technique to create recording audio while you're working on sounds, because you're going to be changing a lot of settings, you might be using multiple plugins, you might not remember the exact combination of buttons and such that got you a specific sound, right? So by recording it all, we can come back to it later, and if we forgot how we arrived at a certain sound, which is going to be very common while you're experimenting, you'll be able to get it back. So let's just go ahead and start it here. Of course, we forgot to record, so let's do that. So there you go. I mean, that's basically a whoosh. Alright, so it's kind of cool. The reason I wanted to show you this is just that now we have, you know, an audio recording of the sounds we made. So if we, you know, trying to find a whoosh to use, we can go ahead and use that. So, you know, we just take a chunk of it here. Where did it start? Yeah, right there. So we can copy that, and then we can just slap it back on here. Hold on. There's two monitors, so I can only show you one at a time. So there we go. So that's a way to just use like an audio track to create some noise, shape it with some EQing, and make some cool sounds that way. But it's fairly limited, right? It's a little bit better is if we use a synthesizer. So let's bring that in. Get this down to the end here. So I'm also going to duplicate our recorded audio here. And see, I've disabled the audio. We're just saving this, right? So what do we do? A noise EQ sweeps. Okay, I'm just trying to stay organized, right? You know, we're going to generate a bunch of files here, so let's know what they are later, right? Okay, so back to the main task. We're going to get a synthesizer on here. I'm going to use, just for this part here, until we get into Vital, we're going to use the plugin Drift that is included with all versions of Ableton. It's a little basic 3 oscillator synth here. And what we're going to do is disable the first 2 oscillators. So it's not doing anything because the noise is turned down. So let's set that as 0, let's say. There you go. So what? That doesn't sound particularly good. What we want to do and what we need to do here to make it interesting is do some shaping on it. So one of the big ways is an envelope. The envelope 1 on this synthesizer, and many synthesizers, most in fact, is that it's a volume envelope. So this shape changes the volume of the sound we're generating. right? So the sustain is what level does it sit at? So already right here, we've kind of created a little volume-based whoosh. Or, again, with a low sustain, and as we shrink the decay, we make even a clickier and blippier type sound. Let's put on an EQ here. Let's see it. And again, we should probably be recording while we're doing this stuff, so let's do that. Oh yes, now we need to change our recording to record drift. Okay, and record on them both. Okay, we don't really care about the tempo or anything. Again, the point of this is called the Mudpie technique, I believe. The point is we just make a big mud pie of sounds and later we will use them. So, you know, these little sounds, you know, can be used to reinforce percussion in particular. Like I was saying, the combination of filtering it down to the frequency you want can basically be used to like add just some more transient to a drum or percussion that's not hitting right per se. You may have noticed I hit the headphone button here. When this is engaged and we're moving a filter on the EQ, it's only going to play the audio of the band we're manipulating. So that's why it's a bit confusing. Better to leave it off when you're working with a bunch of different filters. So you can see here this whole time we're just recording away. Maybe we're going to find a cool sound here. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so I mean, yeah, you can use drift. This is a fairly low function synth in the scheme of synthesizers. So it's good though in that it's simple and you know, as long as you have even the free version of Ableton, the intro version, it comes with a lot of keyboards and stuff. You can use this synth, but you can also use Vital, which is a free VST, and we're gonna use this a ton on my channel. I use it a ton in my productions. So let's get rid of drift for now. I'm gonna bring Vital in. I don't know why it's being annoying like this. There we go. Okay. So what is cool? Why Vital, right? It's just a very nice and easy to use synth. A ton of features. We've got 3 main oscillators and a noise oscillator here. The beauty of this is you can see everything you're doing, which me, when I first learned synthesis back in the 90s, you know, hardware keyboards, it was very confusing, to say the least, because you don't understand necessarily everything you're doing to the sound. You're turning knobs, you're pushing faders. You know, here I'll go into this. You know, I've got control of various parameters in here. Without the visual feedback of a computer, though, it's just hard to understand always what's going on behind the scenes when you're making sounds. So that is a big reason why I like Vital, and it's free. So you know, if you're into music production, you can get this and follow along. Okay. Okay, so what we have been doing there in Drift, I'm going to show you the same thing in Vital now. So envelope 1 is the amplitude envelope in Vital, and so this controls the volume of our sound. Now it's pretty quiet. Let's actually set this to half to start with. Still screaming hard. Sorry guys. Right, so the cool thing with the envelopes here in Vital, we have a lot more control. Okay, they've added a hold parameter. There's a delay we can introduce at the start if we want. The other thing, and the coolest thing about it in my view, is these curves. So we can change the slope of our curves here. Also use this to zoom in a bit and get a better view here. So you can see, or hear, I guess, the different curves sound different, obviously. Oh my goodness, Ableton crashed. Alright, we're back. Yeah, okay. We were playing with the envelope. There's two main ways we're going to use the synthesizer to manipulate the noise here. So the envelope and the LFO. So let's go back to what we were doing here. And I'm just starting an audio recording. Now, as we play sounds, you can see that we're recording them. Now I'm doing this because we are going to probably stumble on some interesting sounds along the way, and this will capture them, okay, so we can use them. So let's just basically play with the envelope, see what kind of sounds we can make just by shaping the volume. Now another nice thing we have here is the hold if we wanted to extend this out. Just gives us another control that we didn't have on the more basic synthesizer. So, I don't know, personally I like these kind of percussive envelopes too. Can make snare drums and hi-hats pretty easily like this. Okay, so this is a fairly basic sound, right? Now, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, we have the ability to use the sound where we want it, specifically in the frequency band. So there's a few ways to do this. The EQ I've got up here, though, is a very straightforward way of doing this. So essentially I've got like a low pass here, or pardon me, a high pass, and then this would be the low pass end of it. So you see what we're doing, we're shrinking the sound just to a small band of frequencies. So this is very useful, right? You have a big dense song, but say it needs a little more accents or something. So this would be a common use, you know. You would find a little gap in your high end, and you'd put some noise there to reinforce what you're trying to reinforce. It might be the kick drum, it might be the snare, something, just to give it a percussive edge. Right, you know, with an envelope like this, you've got a nice short spiky sound, And then we can literally, you know, target where we have room in the mix. That's one of the cool things of white noise. It literally is all frequencies until you shape it, and then you can take away all the frequencies you don't need or that are clashing. So another thing in here, the high and low pass filters we've been using are, you can see they've got a slope, right? So it is, you know, even though we're at, say, 97 hertz here, it's not killing all frequencies below that, it's gradually killing them. So if we go to the 4-pole mode here, this is a much steeper curve, or what we would call surgical curve, I guess. So see how much more abruptly now it limits the sound to where we have set our EQ filter here. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's just a basic technique you're going to probably want to use, particularly when using noise into a musical context. Now, what else can we do here? So we can use the filters. Now, filters are great, and we're going to start with a bandpass notch. I think we'll go here. Now, one thing you may have heard is that wasn't doing anything. It's because we did not have the noise going into the filter yet, so we've got to turn that on. There we go. Let's get rid of that resonance first here. So bandpass, as you can see, it's essentially, it's similar to using the 2 EQs here with one simple control. And if we give it more resonance, it becomes more resonant. But you can hear it's kind of got a more of a pitchy edge starts coming into it. That can be useful. So, like, say we're trying to make a very, you know, piercing kind of accent. Turning up the resonance can really give you some of that point. Okay, so let's just pause this for a moment and go back to our project here. So all that time we've been recording these little blips. So basically I'm just showing, this would be how you could go back and scrub through and look for stuff you want to use. These here sound like pretty nice little hits, if you will. So we can go ahead and we can just take the chunks and put them back onto our stack here. Right, so this is basically just a nice little one shot. You might want to use an audio editor, but Ableton does everything you want really too. So. There you have a basic sound here, and you know, you can label it, you can put it in with your other files. But anyways, the point is, when you're doing like a lot of experimenting with sounds and synthesizers, this is a pretty smart way to work. Okay, so yeah, you're going to spend a bit of time going back through this, but you might have some cool sounds in here that you maybe weren't sure. You know, you're changing a lot of knobs, you're changing a lot of settings, you're working with plugins. You know, you may never get back that exact sound that you stumbled on one day. So by hitting record while you're experimenting, you are potentially saving a cool sound for the future, right? So anyways, we need some more room. Okay, we're filling up our project with files for now. So I'm just going to make some more audio tracks. So that we can just put the audio somewhere, okay? So we're gonna just, so think of these, I'm just going to call them all like record or something. Hashtag rec. And so just to remind ourselves what this file is, we'll call it envelope. We were playing with the envelope while we made that, right? So, okay, so I've got a few kind of lanes here to store audio in. We're going to go back to our synth. Okay, so we've seen a bit what we can do with the envelope. We've heard the effects of this filter. So as you see, the heavy resonance, we can easily make the R2D2 beeps. Oh yeah, let's go back to recording a bit here. So much of what we're hearing there is the resonance, just this filter cranked on the resonance side. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. Let's try some different kind of sounds here though. So let's turn on the resonance. Now what I want to do here, we're going to switch from using the LFO. Obviously there's more you can do with the envelopes, but for now we're going to move on to LFO manipulation. So we're going to get our sustain back up. What we want here, oh, let's turn off the filter again so we can hear this, right? Oh, this got turned really low somehow. I don't know how I did that. Okay, super loud, annoying, apologies. Thankfully we have a limiter, we didn't blow our speakers with that. But, the LFO. Okay, so step one here, we need to assign the LFO to something. So we want it to affect the volume. And we're going to set this a little bit. So one way to think of an LFO, if you're not familiar with synthesizers, it's like a repeating envelope, if you will. You have different controls though. So what I've got here is a triangle shape, and I've got it set to last for one exact bar, which is kind of relevant for making transitions if you're working on songs or tracks. So if I change the tempo here, you know, it speeds up and slows down like that. It's kind of cool. So it's a basic sweep sound, right? We can make it a little, you know, this ramp, it starts quieter and then accelerates really quickly. You know that? Meanwhile, we could do the same on the backside. Right, so it's more punchy, kind of creates a bit more of a spike, or we can go up here. See how it slowly fades away instead of quickly fades away. Or we can do something like that. So you might have been hearing something in there familiar. It kind of sounds like a train a little bit, doesn't it? I found this kind of blobby, convex, concurve, whatever the word is, this shape, this shape of an envelope. It gives you the chuff sound, almost like steam being released from a pipe. That's pretty cool. And again, we have almost nothing going on here. We have noise and its volume is being changed. That's all we're doing here. That's the source of this entire sound. But let's go ahead and apply some filtering as well. So let's give it the movement. So we're going to have the LFO also change the filter frequency here. Isn't that cool? So this wheel says how much does the LFO affect the filter cutoff. Modulation amount is, I guess, a technical term for this. Right, so with this, we're basically making like kind of a riser. Gets kind of more and more high pitched. Now let's do something even crazier. We're going to use another LFO. Okay, so this one, I'm going to set on a full bar. And we're going to set it on a ramp or saw. So we're going to make a few changes. What we want is this new LFO to sweep the filter. Actually, yeah, so let's disable this. We'll move that for now. So again, this is now changing this knob, but we can still change where this frequency starts, right? So essentially what we have now is a 1-bar riser. Okay, this forces it to be a 1 bar in length. We've got kind of a chuffy train sound on top of it with the other LFO. So experimenting with this will lead you to all kinds of cool sounds, risers, and so on. We can get super, super wild and creative with this. For an example, that's kind of cool, right? And so we can even make this more powerful. We can use the second LFO to affect the first one, the speed of it. So let's go ahead and do that. On the LFO, we want the second LFO to affect the tempo, but we need to be careful. We don't want a big swing. So what's going to be helpful here is actually setting this first one a little bit slower. So LFO 2, this is a 1-bar ramp, right? It's always steadily going up. So what we have it doing now is speeding up this LFO. Very common effect, I'm sure you've heard that before. But by experimenting with different values through all these, you can have, you know, infinite types of sweeps and variations and of your risers. And then it's very easy here. We just, if we needed a 2-bar, we just change it to a 2-bar. Right? It was that simple. Now, I do feel like we're maybe accelerating that first LFO a bit much, so we'll turn it down. So it's all in the experimentation. So, you know, you can play with this till it gets exactly the way you want. Or, like I said, we've been recording this whole time, so all those sounds we made are here now to work with if we want them. So I'm going to solo this. I don't want to hear everything doubled. So yeah, a lot of these are going to be kind of samey, if you will, but anyways, enough of that. I mean, you got the gist, right? We're basically recording scratch tracks as we go, because that could be useful later, right? Call this a sound design session. Okay. So yeah, that was some basic work of the LFO, the envelopes, filters, and it's all pretty straightforward, right? So let's make it a little more impressive sounding. We're going to add some reverb here. Going back to my best and favorite reverb, Supermassive Space Echo, or 80s Space Verb. Where did it go? This. See how much cooler that sounds now? Just because it's washed in reverb, right? We don't need to use all of that. We can turn it down a little. Oh yeah, before I get too far, let's make sure we're recording a new pass as well. So we already played with those a lot. I'm gonna bypass these LFOs. Ooh, interesting. Kind of sounds like a sonar pulse. Yeah, that's why you record. Sometimes you randomly hit something that's cool, and you're like, oh, next time I need a submarine ping, I can go back to that, right? But yeah, let's see what we got here. Actually, I'll just turn this off. Right, so what we've done here is we've got no levels. That's pretty cool. I don't know. I like putting it through big reverbs. You can do a lot of swooshes like this. That is a huge reverb tail. The nice thing is you can always chop it off later if it's too long to fit in your track or what have you. Okay, that was the down sweeper, right? So let's actually address this a bit. I'm going to lower the feedback a bit, just so it's not quite as long of a tail. Yeah, that's probably not. That's a little bit too little. Actually, let's check our recording. What I'm trying to do here is make sure, the tail isn't too much, because alright, so it takes around a measure for that reverb tail to go away, right? For just return to silence for us. So I think that's a good level for that. Okay, so obviously whooshes, sweeps, upshifters, downshifters, these are various ways to make them. Let's do something else. Let's do some actual nature type sounds, which is kind of interestingly simple to do. So we're going to use the random number generator here, the random chaos source, whatever you want to call it, to affect our filter. Oops, I dragged that to the wrong place. Go there. Doesn't that just sound like wind? So what I would generally do, and I have done, in fact, one of my sound design challenge entries, I used many layers of white noise to create a windy kind of environment. So the trick to make a realistic wind is to use like several versions of this, layers of them, right? And then also think about your scene. If you're you're doing it for sound design. For video, look at the scene. Like, what kind of wind is it? Is it howling wind? Is it in the distance? But yeah, to make it more realistic, it's good to make multiple layers of this type of patch. So I'll give an example here. So we'll call this one layer 1. It's called wind slow. Okay, so because I've set this to a 1 bar randomizer. And let's make a copy of it. And this one, though, we're going to speed up a little, and we're going to change that. Okay, there we go. And to make this more interesting, we could also use that same random information to, let's tweak the volume, but in a downward direction a little. So this one, sorry, I forgot to rename it, wind medium, we'll call it. And if I record on both, so we have basically 2 tracks here. Actually, let's just kill it. And I'm playing them both, one being the faster and the one being the slower. So again, you're trying to make a very windy scene, you might want to make many copies of that. The sound design thing I mentioned, I think I used 4 layers to create that effect. Anyway, so wind. Very easy to make wind with white noise like that.
Eddy.